So then President Ramaphosa's visit to the United States has been described as one that marks a decisive turning point potentially in terms of resetting diplomatic relations between the two countries. Let's talk now about the agricultural aspect of this, because South Africa does a lot of trade with the United States, selling things such as nuts, citrus, as well as grapes. Let's bring in Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa Chief Economist Wandile. Sihlobo, Wandile, good to have you on Full View. You speak to farmers quite regularly, right? Are they fleeing South Africa in the large numbers that the Trump administration seems to believe they are, or wanting to flee at least?
That was a misrepresentation of reality in South Africa. We know that just thinking about last week, if anyone traveled to Bothaville in Nambu, they would have seen that farmers were there. And they were not only just there sitting by, they were optimistic about where this sector is going. But it doesn't end there. If anyone has looked at South Africa's agricultural sector, we are actually at a point where I would say the sector is flourishing. You think back, to 1994, compared to where we're sitting today. If anything, this sector has actually flourished. So this is all to say much of what was discussed last night is actually a misrepresentation of the reality that we see in the ground.
And if the farmers are not leaving, and you're saying, in fact, the sector is growing, where do people like Donald Trump get the information that's to the contrary and that they are spreading so confidently?
I mean, look, I think all of us as South Africans, we know that crime is a major issue in this country. And I think all South Africans are challenged with it, which is where then I think that the South African Police Service, the government in general, we have to be doing a lot of work on addressing crime. But broadly, as if it's isolated and targeting the sector, I would say that that's incorrect. It's targeting, and everyone is feeling these difficulties. The sector on itself, which is where I get worried when some of these things happen, is because of the undue negative impact it could have on us. Remember, typically, we're having a sector here that is export-oriented. So the reputation and the image of South African agricultural sector matters a lot. And this is not to say whitewash the challenges that are there. You are not washing away the challenges. But this sector is flourishing. We're now exporting half of what we produce. Last year, close to $14 billion that we sent to the world market as agriculture. You can't see numbers like that in a sector where everyone is running away from them. There are isolated difficulties, which I think the law enforcement should address, just like all of the other crime that as a country we are seeing.
On safety and security, which worries us all because crime is rampant, especially violent crime in South Africa, how or what is the assessment from your conversations with farmers? How safe do they feel on their property?
Look, the difficulty with the farming sector is that you are staying in areas that are fairly isolated compared to what you see in the urban areas. So this has been a topic that has been running for some time. Many organizations, our colleagues at AgriSA, at TLU, and the others, they've been putting efforts of saying, how do they enhance the security of farms, where they are addressing it through various forums of rural safety, which is why I think that what we're supposed to be doing now is having the police and the entire government working with the likes of TLU, AgriSA, the ACPIS, all of the Farmer Association and Agribusiness Grouping to enhance rural safety, rather than only just pointing out as something that is there and perhaps maybe even pushing the envelope a little bit on some of the aspects. That's what we should be doing. And that's the message that I'm hearing also from the other organizations to say, let's promote rural safety and address some of the difficulties that are there. But crime is a wide-scale issue in South Africa, not necessarily isolated to certain areas.
Should these agricultural organizations, the farming communities themselves not be doing more to correct the falsehoods being spread then about their level of safety in comparison to any other South African who lives with the fear of being stabbed, shot, hijacked at a traffic light?
I think, an opportunity to express the reality of what's happening in the South African agricultural sector is something that all of us we should be doing. Us having this conversation now, highlighting some of the benefits that the sector brings and the gains and the progress that he has brought is a first step on that. The key thing then for the law enforcement is to say, how do you protect the rural community, so that then the progress that we are seeing is something that we can perhaps maybe continue to see or even see more of that. But beyond that, protect just all South Africans on addressing this. But you are right that we should be speaking more as various organizations about some of these aspects. And I hope that's something that will continue going forward.
You raised earlier that trade figure, about 14 billion rand worth of exports that South Africa sent off. $14 billion, am I right, of worth of exports, which South Africa sent off to the United States in just the last year. We know the trade conversations between Pretoria and Washington will continue in terms of the granular detail. But is there a sense of assurance that at least the business that already exists is safe for now, or even the longer term?
Tamila, so what happens is we send, to be exact, 13.7, which is close to 14 billion US dollars of exports to the world market. The US is vital. It's about 4% of our overall exports. But as you and I have talked about this before, concentrated in certain commodities, nuts, wine, grapes, citrus, and the others. Our desire is to continue to have a preferential terms of trade with the U.S. No tariffs is a preferred case on that. But of course, then we have all been working with the government on thinking about what the path forward should look like. We hope then that the conversations that will continue, led by the DTIC and the Department of Commerce in the U.S., could open up a pathway for a deeper conversation about what trade could look like. But remember, South Africa has always put its position clear. The president said this, the Minister of Trade as well as DERCO made the point that we want to get a free trade agreement with the United States, and us at ACBIS and the entire agricultural sector, that's the feeling. And we hope then that the conversations that will follow will provide some guidance on that, and hopefully with speed.
Wandile, Sihlobo, good to talk to you as always. Wandile is with the Agricultural Business Chamber of Commerce. He's actually the chief economist there.